doesn't line up with the way Joe decides to go into it, it can be a complete flip-flopper, vice versa. Like, this is the scariest part about decks that can have multiple play lines and strategies going into game 3. You don't know what your opponent's doing, and you have to be very careful and observing to see what their game plan is to make your proper adjustments.
That's right. So here we go. Game number 3 between Joe Delatorre and Michael Emofa, and the winner of this moves on in the tournament. The loser, their weekend is done, and this is what I love about competitive gaming. 2 giant brains slamming together, seeing which one is more powerful.
And here we are seeing kind of a repeat of game 1 here, Joe going second, but a crucial difference is Michael has no turn 1 or turn 2 play. The best thing he could do was get rid of that Lafitte that Joe already got value out of. And it looks like Michael was clarifying what card Lafitte grabbed, which was the 10-drop Peach.
Right. Yeah, the first turn's Fast and the Furious. We're already to Joe's 4-Dawn turn. And, crucially, that means that Joe is on the even curve, right? So that means that 10-cost Teach can come a little bit earlier than it did last game. And, maybe that, sometimes that's all it takes to tip the scales in a really, really tight match like this, too. And certainly something I think Joe's going to be happy with.
And kind of like Chris was saying, look how different these Game 2 versus Game 3 are. Last time when Michael was at his 5-Dawn turn, he was at 0 life. Now he's going to be probably at around 3 to 4.
Right. Attacking in with Teach, it looks like, and there's Lafitte for even more searching.
Again, just more and more cycle. It's not going to be a total +1 because Michael will most likely attack into it on his turn, but if it stays in play ever, it can just generate so much advantage in this deck that if it gets it, can really utilize it using that Teach ability to discard and turn off on-play effects.
Right.
That is the craziest thing about game 3s when you can have them. There likely aren't any surprises. You've seen each other play through 2 games. You've seen like techs, you've seen playstyle adjustments, and this is what makes it so exciting.
Yeah, it's like you start to run into those little micro plays where it's like, I'm going to play in a way that kind of makes my opponent think I might have something I don't, or that I do have something I don't, and it becomes the mind games become a main feature in game 3s.
Crucially, too, Game 3 is when you both have the most amount of information in terms of what cards are in your opponent's deck, as well as how they choose to play with those cards.
Sure. Yeah, and the leader attack used to remove the Lafitte, and yeah, that's exactly what you were talking about, Unix, where it's just, you can't allow that to stay on the board for too long. Oh, okay, there's a Gecko Moria out of life.
Ooh.
That card's honestly useless in this matchup.
Yeah.
I don't think Michael's ever going to
really
get that card down.
Yeah, so that's not bad at all.
I know it's weird to say Gecko Moria is useless, but I promise you guys, it's probably more, it's not worth the squeeze, essentially.
Wow. Clip it. True Champ Steve says Gecko Moria, useless card.
I know.
Wow, can't believe
What does he know?
Yeah.
That's crazy. All right, well, it's Burgess time.
It's always Burgess time. 6-Dawn for Joe, I believe, this turn.
We're going to see the 7K attack going into the leader, it looks like. Just want to get him down to low life, I suppose.
Okay. Huh.
I think Joe has taken an overall aggressive approach to this matchup because he just knows he has so much advantage in the late game. Then we see the finger pistol coming down.
Well, more aggressive than in game number 1, certainly, it seems.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes. But he was always swinging with the leader, just not like in terms of like his goal is now to get him to 0, it looks like, as soon as possible.
Over to Michael again.
And now, if Michael wants to attack, he has to give Joe a card, and he's fine with doing that. Oh, maybe not. I lied.
Decisions.
Did Michael lie to me? I think he did.
It gets tense. What's the play going to be?
7 down. There's really not much value you can get out of that.
You can see the pressure, right? I mean, these players, and I mean, this is what it is. This is what it takes to be a top player in any card game. You gotta play the game. You gotta deal with the pressures of being on stage sometimes. Going to go ahead and play the fifth Luffy as well. And turn over the life. It's a flampe. It's going to the trash.
And then I think we're going to maybe go for the leader ability here. Discard the last name we want from our hand to get 2 life back. Could be cool.
Once again, shout out to the person running the life counter behind the scenes for having to do that during a Black Yellow Luffy game. It's not easy. It's not an easy job.
Starts at 4, goes to 0, goes back to 1, goes to 2, goes to 0. Oh, yeah. Over and over again. Yep, so we see Rocket Luffy going away. Going to get those 2 boys back into the life and just pass the turn.
Fair enough. Taking a look at trash, too. And I think that's a good thing to keep track of pretty aggressively if you're in Michael's position right now. just knowing what's there, knowing what's possible to come out of the hand, knowing how many cards are in trash, of course, for the purpose of the Burgess power.
I think it was 9 right now, which means the Burgess would get plus 2,000.
Against Blackbeard, between the amount of times they search and especially what they drop, it is very easy to keep a general track of their 4 or 5 card hand, even with their combo power. You see enough 2Ks in there, you know what they've searched. There's only about 2 to 3 blanks in their hand at any given moment that you don't have knowledge of. So yes, like Michael should be checking the graveyard as much as possible to make sure he keeps track. It's pretty easy to ascertain how hard you need to swing in for some assured damage versus this deck.
There's another finger pistol coming down. He does not want those 5-drop starter deck Luffys to stay in play at all.
I wouldn't either. There's the first Burgess on the board.
The momentum is going back and forth incredibly. Neither player has been keeping things on the board for more than a turn or so, but that last turn, the finger pistol into the Burgess was a massive tempo shift.
Yeah, it can sometimes feel so hard to play against Teach in these more grindy matchups like BY Luffy because you're like, I don't want to give you cards, but if your life is not going down, I have no idea how I put you on a clock in the late game.
Man, that Burgess is already a 9K. That is
Kind of scary.
Yeah, no kidding.
16 cards in trash. Wow.
All right, well, we swapped the little Luffy out for the big Luffy.
That's a third 5-drop Luffy from Michael there. That's good to see, actually, because he really wants that to continuously go down to 0 and be back at 2 life at the beginning of each turn, it looks like.
It does make sense, yeah. And just put another big threat on board, too. I mean, that Luffy can buff itself up to, I believe it's 8, right?
Yeah.
And then, yeah, that's another big swing, too.
Yeah, and in this matchup, too, Michael really wants to see his babies, and so having this extra cycle plus whatever searchers he has is going to be really huge, but he hasn't really searched that much this game, which means I don't know if he has that many combo, pieces in hand. There we see another Moria being discarded, it looks like. We're determining what names we want from leader ability, maybe determining if we want to add any from hand. It looks like we're not.
I think it has to be the 2 Luffys again. Looks like you kind of don't want to pull cards from hand for the ability this game.
But like
you don't want to do it generally at all, but like especially this game.
Yeah. But like if your only baby in hand's a Sabo, you don't have a Sabo name.
Sometimes you have to. It doesn't feel good versus taking them out the trash. And Michael thinking really hard about this one too.
Yeah, I believe until he puts them in life, he can change at any point what the names are. But he goes for those 2, plays the Sabo, won't get the on-play effect, no protection. Do we have another finger pistol or black hole from Joe to get rid of that blocker? That'd be pretty crazy.
I wonder. I mean,
backbreaking.
You're going to run out eventually, but yeah, what it is? Okay, yep, there's a 10 cost teach that's going to negate the Luffy on the board, so no attack from that coming in next turn. Can't use it either.
I
Is
guess
that another
that's
10
pretty
cost
good
teach
too.
in his hand?
I believe so.
That is, yeah, he's about to be on a tear.
With 3 life too, like how do you put Joe down to 0 and win the game from this point forward? Because these 10 drops and the Burgess already in play are representing a natural clock for you, and you kind of can't do the same to them.
Yeah, these are units that you're just not going to remove without the Rygo, right? So if you look at your hand, I mean that's an expensive card too. That's a large portion of your Dawn committed to that each turn. So when you get multiple 10 cost teachers out there, plus the Burgess that's going to be on like 10K, 11K power coming up soon.
Yeah.
Like that is a tough thing to commit.
Like your choice is either use Dawn to get rid of the Burgess by attacking into it, or use Rygo to get rid of 10-drop Teach. Both are scary cards.
Yeah. And both require a lot of Dawn.
Yes.
Yeah. Both options.
So Michael, I think, like I said, I think he's digging for babies. I don't think he has any that can reasonably set up any combos for him to increase his leader's power, which would be super important for making sure you don't have your entire hand eaten up by these powerful Burgess swings.
Ouch.
Is that a whiff?
Yep.
Wow.
Whoa. Not the time for that to happen.
There have been a lot of new cards added to the deck that 3 Brothers does not search, which is a little unfortunate.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I have seen some lists that cut it completely. I feel like most people still run like 2 of at least, but yeah, you do run into those unfortunate situations every once in a while where you just don't find them.
Yeah, we know Michael plays Moria, Kuzan, Ivankov, Shirahoshi, Kingdom Come. All those cards are not searchable from 3 Brothers, so lots of whiff targets.
Yep.
Yeah, the unfortunate part here, I mean, it's part of card games in general, but if you could see Michael's hand at the beginning, you kind of saw he didn't have the most explosive start. There was a fair amount of breaking in the hand, but to break on top of a set, like on top of a 5 searcher, 5 deep searcher, and then just whiff on it, this is just not going for him in terms of like the cards he's seeing, and it doesn't help that Joe's not in a bad position.
Not at all.
It's just like he's about to just continue gumming up the board. negating crucial effects.
There you see the Ivankov blocker coming down. I think Michael is just going shields up here. He was like, I need more turns to see my cards. I don't think he has a way to get this down to 0 life to activate leader ability. Yep, we see him not saving up the 2 Dawn, just playing a Rocket Luffy and passing. This is huge for Joe.
All right. What's the follow-up going to be? We know he's got a Burgess in his hand, but I think, another 10 cost teach. It feels like you just toss that immediately up, and that's exactly what it's going to be. Targeting the Luffy one more time on the other side to make that not able to attack, not able to really do anything on the next turn. And now you've got those 2 12K blockers to worry about, and you've got that Burgess, which is just growing bigger and bigger. In fact, it's up to 10K now in power, plus 5 from the amount of cards in trash. Just a recount just to make sure for Joe here.
Something we might get to see here is the most wild thing ever, a 10-drop each attacking, because why wouldn't you attack with it when you already have 1 in play?
And the 5K swing.
Yeah, we did not have any increase in power last turn.
No increase of power means neutral can, or leader can actually get in for neutral.
Yep.
And at minimum, you're just getting rid of a card in hand, but all this counter actually matters. You see a dead Gecko at the top of his hand. This is just a crushing position to be in. And right now, you'd have to think Michael is not playing to win right now. He's playing to survive in hopes that he can dig a win out later. But with 2 teaches already on the board, the Joe is very, very much so stabilized.
I mean, these are just the situations that you got to overcome if you're going to be a top player. So we know, this is the type of situation that Michael, probably has overcome already in this tournament to get this far. But, you can't win them all, but he's definitely not out of it yet.
We saw a 2K counter Hiyori from Michael there, and Joe just said pass. I have 2 12K blockers. Over to you.
Yep.
Ooh, and then we see that if this can get like a removal or like a black hole just like that, that could be like the end for Michael there. But we see him grabbing his own blocker.
Okay. Yeah, okay.
Maybe he already has like a finger pistol or black hole in hand.
Could be.
I mean, just because Joe is stabilizing doesn't mean that Joe can get a little reckless with his 10Ks. It's good to have the blocks through because you never just want to lose to, let me just dawn up something huge, heavy, and swing in for game.
Or like a Kingdom Come either, too,
Yeah, he's still chilling. We do see that in the hand.
I think he drew it for turn.
Yep.
At least he doesn't have to worry about Kingdom Come on the Burgess anyway.
Oh, he drew it off the Rocket Luffy effect. That's what he got off Kingdom Come. Gotcha. There we see the...
leader ability.
Yeah.
And looks like, the turn is pass. Yeah, Raigo, Kingdom Come, whatever you want to call it, used to take out one of those 10 cost teaches. Man, that is an 11K Burgess on the other side. Going to need another dice soon. And that's a Kuzan, I believe, in the board right now.
Kuzan without its draw effect just feels so unfortunate.
It's like...
basically the same thing, right? You have no counter in hand or no counter in hand, right?
Yeah.
It's like if you can't afford Laboons, it's like the sad alternative. If you're playing Teach, you're like, well, I guess I'll attack with him next turn and minus something.
Why not?
The disrespect on Kuzan.
Only in the Teach deck.
Yeah.
In the BY deck, he's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. In pretty much every other deck, he's awesome.
But when you can't get that on-play draw, it's really sad.
Yeah. We'll take him in Lucci. We'll take him in Old Drop Lucci.
And then it's got to be frustrating. I mean, obviously, you know the matchup. You know it's not a good matchup for you, but it's got to be frustrating because when you see the hand, under any other circumstances, this hand would be fine. At least it'd be okay.
10-drop Teach from Joe, just 3 turns in a row.
Yep, and I mean, this is what you do, right? This is a lot like game number 1, where the hand has been crafted to just be filled with these 10-cost Teaches. The Burgess to back that up if you don't have it. Only got 1 out before the Teaches started rolling this time around, but there's another 5K swing, and these 5K swings are so annoying to deal with because you don't want to give up a card for this. But what else are you going to do, right? You don't want to lose your blocker. You don't want to take a life.
It's a perfect little it's a perfect check because once that goes through, you can start testing. But with blockers on the board, you do have to be a little careful. It is kind of one of these things, like he's getting a critical curve. Like this is just a point where he was already in a good position and he is just playing a valid haymaker threat per turn. And there's not a lot on board. These 2 blockers are really the only thing keeping Michael in the game at this very moment, and they may not last for that long.
11K lead. This might be a take for Michael here, because he knows that he has only 1 attack left and he has 2 blockers, which means it's not over now. And honestly, if Michael draws another Kingdom Come, he actually could have lethal in play.
I was gonna say, yeah. I mean, that's what we kept saying over and over again, that Michael isn't out of it yet. It's not over till it's over, right? And I think Joe is starting to feel the pressure himself, right? He's like, I need to get something done. I need to get a swing in here. But it's always a little bit scary to commit that first big swing with the Burgess.
I mean, when you play you have to play the teach. You have to play the teach to stop so many things from happening. But playing that teach locks you out of playing a smaller blocker and another card. Right. So he really is in a position where these teachers are coming down and they're doing the Lord's work, but the previous teach cannot turn sideways under any circumstances. But we are still in a position where we are maybe a singular black hole away from just dealing irreversible damage to the game state.
Yeah, that's my thought exactly. Is like we
Kingdom
have
Come, Black
attacks.
Hole, like one of them just needs to draw a singular card, and it's about to be an issue.
Oh, that's a power move there from Joe. Not even picking up his hand to counter. He's like, I've seen the lines. I know everything you could do this turn.
I mean, I'm not going to hold you. If I got 3 cards in hand, I better know what I intend to do with them.
Does that buff the Burgess too?
Maybe.
For those keeping track at home, we're about to find out. And okay.
1 away from 28, I think.
Yeah.
There we see another Sabo coming down. That's 3 blockers. I mean, and then we're gonna get the 2 life back here from Luffy. I don't think Michael's out of it yet. Like, we still have to, get him down to 0 and attack for lethal. And without removal spells, I don't know how we do it as Joe.
This is getting scary because we are also reaching the point where, like, Michael's about to have just more swings than Joe has blockers.
I mean, does Joe have another teach in hand? That's what I'm wondering right now. He's going to leader ability.
I mean, he's digging.
He's going to do the stage first. My bad. Not leader ability.
He has to do the stage to see if he can keep that 10 up.
Michael's sitting back. He's like, hey, I did what I could. Now it's time to just see what happens.
Yeah, this could be like a victim here of Joe not having any other attackers besides the Burgess, because like Chris said, you don't want to turn your blockers sideways here because Michael still has threats in play, and you could have easily been attacked back because of your low hand size.
Michael could block almost every attack that, like Michael could block 3 out of the 4 attacks that could come through right now and still be able to probably just immediately just turn his board sideways and end him next turn. This is a precarious place for Joe to be in, and it's got to feel good because Michael just knows this is almost inevitability, especially with him not playing, immediately windmilling another 10-drop teach. This is just not a good space.
And that's the value in a game like One Piece where like attackers don't get KO when they attack in something stronger than them, and the constant threat of Kingdom Come in Michael's deck. Just sort of saying to Joe, I need both blockers up at all times, right? I believe that was a pitch for leader effect on this black hole.
Correct, yeah. That's what it looked like here. No spending of the Dawn just yet. Trying to decide if there's maybe anything else he can do here.
Yeah, literally. I think it's a difference of 1 non-10-drop teach attacker in play. Like if Joe had literally anything in play, like a Doc Q or anything, he would just throw this Dawn on it and attack with it.
Well, we know
force cards out.
And this
big attack. Okay.
This is definitely got to give Michael like a feeling of relief. He is not seeing anything valuable come down quite yet. And he knows he's not seeing another teach. He's going to have effects live that he wouldn't normally have. He's keeping those blockers up. There's no way he's dying. And once again, he's got more attackers than Joe has blockers. He needs to connect twice. But with 2 cards in hand, that may not be the hardest thing to do at all.
And 10 Dawn up, too. Like, everything in play is a valid attacker. It is worth noting, though, that we're kind of in another situation for Michael here where if he chooses to go for game and fails by, like, resting his blockers to attack with, that could be all she wrote, because I don't think he can afford to like have big enough numbers to threaten the blockers. So let's see what he goes for here. We see just I think it's just a 6K swing, or we just take it as Joe. We're going down to 0.
Okay.
We have 5 attacks left as Michael.
All right, here we go. Can Michael possibly end it right here, right now? Divvying up the Dawn for a potential big series of attacks. There's a Sabo going in with 1 Dawn attached, so all of these things. I mean, it's just the number of attacks, right, is what it's coming down to here.
Oh, yeah, basic math now.
I mean, it's at the end of the day, like both of these players are playing their heart out.
Yep.
But at the end of the day,
there's block 2.
Nice. That's rough.
7, and there it is. Joe had no counter in hand. Michael wins.
Michael and Foma able to take it in a game number 3. The poise, the control, the comeback in that game was incredible. Joe played it so well, but Michael able to just get over the finish line in the end, and he will move on. What a series.
Man, look at us talking all that mad smack about how good Teach was against BY Luffy, and Michael going,
Hey.
no, guys, there's a game plan. I'm going to show you.
Hey,
Well,
I mean, we said it going into it. You know, there's no such thing as a 100% win rate matchup, right? I mean, any given Sunday, and Michael showed us it right there.
Yeah, and it truly did feel like Joe in that final match had everything except one more attacker. If he had one more attacker in play established before those 10-drop Teaches came down, it's a completely different game because every turn he can threaten at least one blocker. But Michael was able to just skate by, have all these things grow to a gigantic board that could all attack and say, 3 cards in hand, 1 life? I don't think 2 blockers will cut it.
Yeah, and it's really rough to actually see how that one plays out because they were both in a simplified game state where both players were essentially just looking at the top of their deck in hopes of seeing something relevant enough to keep them in the game or break the current status.